Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. Hope you're having a good evening. It feels like I just talked to you just 2 days ago.
That's because you did.
Yeah.
Literally what happened, Will. I was there.
You were there. Yeah. You were there. Yes,
time.
you were. Yes, I was. Hey, I wasn't. I was there 10 minutes before the recording started. But yeah, for folks who may have missed us, we were on the A+ Hero Report podcast this week. So go check it out. It's on our various socials.
And he's already rewriting history. I don't recall it was 10 minutes. But anyway, yeah, it's weird because we talked already on Sunday. We didn't talk about Last of Us too much. We mainly talked about our favorite show.
Yeah. If you want to hear our thoughts on the Flash episode 1, go listen to us over there.
Yeah, definitely show them some support as well. And The Last of Us, because of the Super Bowl on Sunday, aired its episode on Friday. And so I'm used to us talking about things like a little bit later, but for whatever reason, I'm just like, it's Tuesday, and I love the episode, right? We both did, but I don't have that high because it's been 4 days.
Actually, I went back and rewatched it last night because to
avoid
that. Huh? Of course I did.
You did. Oh
yeah.
I wanted to, and then I ended up listening to some people talk about it and wanted to. If I were to rewatch it, there would only be one scene that I were to rewatch. But I'm not a sadist, so I'm not gonna rewatch.
Yeah. For sure. But we'll get into
that. Yeah, exactly. We'll get to that because even though Sunday morning we were talking about on a podcast in the afternoon, the Super Bowl happened. I did not watch. Will probably did. But there were some trailers, and then Kevin Feige decided to write a memoir or like have a big interview. So Will, how about we start with the most current thing, which you read something that I did not have time to. And if I did, I probably wouldn't, but let's just be honest. But you're going to explain to us what Kevin Feige said.
Yeah,
I don't know how to introduce this. Anyway.
Yeah, well, obviously, as folks know, Ant-Man is opening up Thursday, and they had one of the many premieres, and Kevin Feige sat down with Entertainment Weekly to basically talk about Phase 5, and it's a very, very long article that dropped a lot of questions about many things. Of course, Kevin talks about that he's actually been at Marvel Studios now 23 years, and it's been like 15 years since I guess the first Iron Man debuted. And really, the first part of the article, obviously, since Ant-Man is out, a lot of discussion about why Jonathan Majors was selected as Kang, why Kang was selected as the next big villain, and of course, Feige goes into the many aspects of Kang's villainy, and he's like that level of threat like Thanos was, and then how they had cast Jonathan for Loki. But in the process of doing so, they're like, oh, well, we're also just going to head and cast him for Quantumania as well, because with all the test screenings from Quantumania and his work in Loki, they were, and whenever Kevin showed the friends and family screening just to see how he was reacted, and that was like an unfinished cut without all the special effects, he was like, Jonathan was the effect. So which is kind of consistent with what little I have heard about the film. I haven't really dug much into a lot of the reviews and stuff yet, but really got into why Jonathan was cast and things about King. But then it also gets into other things about Phase 5. A couple highlights. He did note that they confirmed that Moon Knight is going to have a second season, and also that Blade, which I know we talked about late last year, where the director had left the project, but new creative team directors on board. They're planning to start filming in about 10 weeks, as at the time of the article, which is today. Also talked about the Marvels, in particular, how Kamala really is going to steal the show, but also how the Marvels is going to set up Secret Invasion and tonally it'll also be the story. And Secret Invasion will flow from a lot of things from that movie, as well as the whole Skrull Scree conflict as well. So
wait.
Yeah.
So The Marvels comes out in
July.
Mm-hmm. And it will set up Secret Invasion?
Tonally, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just interesting. It's kind of throwing me off because the Secret Invasion, we already have seen a trailer for it, and that was supposed to come out in the spring. And so I think it's an interesting move to suddenly move it to after the Marvels because of the whole setup situation that occurs within the movie.
Yeah. So to read directly from the story, the Secret of the Marvels, the movie itself will pick up elements of the Kree-Skrull War, and it's picking up directly after the end of Captain Marvel 1, as far as the film, but not in the timeline, but in the story. As far as
the timeline with this stuff, it got weird when they dropped Black Widow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny, and I especially with their introduction of the multiverse, you're kind of like time schmime. That's what we got Loki around to fix.
Yeah.
So, but man.
But also about but also about the Marvels. He also noted that obviously the movie's really going to focus a lot of the dynamics between Brie Larson's Carol, Iman Vellani's Kamala, and Theodora Paris's Monica Rambeau. So, and then of course, well, no, but really focus on those dynamics, of course. I mean,
yeah. You told me that there was a lot of fluff in this article, Will, and you pulled out the kernels. And I was like, I would hope a movie about the Marvels would focus on about the Marvels relationships. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But but also I think the Skrull and Scree War will play into those dynamics, and of course the Secret Invasion show will also, since we do know that when we last saw Nick Fury, he was on the starship. So so that's where that is. Anyway, he also talked about the X-Men as well, that at some point down the line they will probably develop it. Let's see what else. He mentioned they are working on another Spider-Man film, as far as just getting the script together for it. He also noted that what we saw in the Phase 4, how they started to experiment some with the story and storytelling, and how, of course, the MCU is well known with the serialized storytelling and having things connect. But he also noted that that there's maybe some possibilities down the road that they may actually start to have some more standalone stories in future phases. And I think those are some of the main things. The other big one was Harrison Ford. Of course, we know that he was cast as Thaddeus Ross as Thunderbolt Ross, and he will be appearing in Captain America 4. And Feige noted that as the president, and and noted that there'll be a lot of interesting dynamics between President Ross and Sam Wilson as Captain America. And he noted, like, obviously Harrison Ford's portrayal as the president in Air Force One, but also there was a very pivotal scene between Jack Ryan and the president and Clear and Present Danger. So, maybe see some of those elements in the Captain America 4 when Ross and Sam have their interactions. But those were some of the main points from the article. Like I said, very long. He also talks about James Gunn and Guardians, and James going to obviously will work for DC, not only now as the head of the studios, but also in the past. That's whenever he made the Suicide Squad. So, yeah, it's a very interesting article. I'll make sure to post it on our socials, so if folks want to go check it out, you can do so.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. And I mean, it's a perfect segue into the Flash movie trailer that got dropped during the Super Bowl. Well, actually,
yeah.
I know it did. I was thinking more about I could have gone Guardians, but I could also go to Flash, because apparently the Flash is James Gunn's favorite DCU movie, and it's going to break all the records and be brilliant. I watched this trailer. I've seen it twice. I've seen people react to this trailer. They had the same reaction I did. The CGI wasn't that great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to call a spade a spade. The CGI is classic DCEU CGI third. And you know what? I'll throw it out here. Classic MCU CGI too. It's just phony. So bad. This film, I have no, I don't want to say I have no doubt, but I will just say that there is a chance, I'm not denying this, that I will walk out of that movie and be like, this is why I like The Flash. I like Barry Allen, because he has a very interesting arc. He has a very interesting story. And this is why I watched 7.5 seasons of The Flash on CW before they ruined that story. So I am not, I think that this movie will probably, for a comic book movie, for a movie within this genre, for a movie a part of the DCU, probably be very well written, and have some really good character moments. However, I have no doubt after watching that trailer that it's a DCU movie. And so, yeah, it's probably going to have some third act issues, as most of them do, and I'm not just saying that about DCU. I'm saying about MCU has third act issues all the time as well. But I have a feeling that it's going to, and I don't know. It's still Ezra Miller, and I don't know how to feel about him, because I've always liked the casting, but then all of this shit happened, and now I'm just like, man, this movie was supposed to be released last summer?
Yeah.
5 years ago?
Talk about like films that took forever to finally get to the screen. This is definitely one of them, because it went through like how many different scripts before they finally settled on this one.
I don't know. I felt like there were 25,000 images of Michael Keaton walking around set.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels weird that we have a full length trailer now. And a lot of it was also strange to me, and maybe it's because of the long development process, or the long time between when they finished filming and now, where nothing surprised me. Like the trailer, honestly, there was nothing that I was like, oh my God, that person's in it. I completely forgot about it. I remembered Kara was in it.
Yeah.
And she looked badass.
Yeah.
I remember all of this stuff. So I don't know. Maybe that's where some of my lack of enthusiasm for the trailer is coming from, where I feel like we've spent so much time talking about this movie that everything they showed, I was like, yeah, that doesn't, not surprising.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what were your thoughts?
I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was a banger. I really, even though I could completely agree with what you said about the lead up to finally getting this trailer,
Mm-hmm.
and we always knew that it was going to be some sort of adaptation of Flashpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that they have adapted the story, because it's not a one-to-one adaptation of the comic. Uh, but it's a lot to, because they do, but the core of the story is there. I mean, I saw that in the trailer where you have a depowered Barry, I guess the long hair Barry. That's the powerless Barry, and then we get the DCEU Barry. Uh, I guess as his guide through this journey, instead of it being Thomas Wayne like we had in the comic book. Is I guess the DCEU Barry is going to be the power, the new Barry, guide through this. And then so I saw those elements. Of course, damn it, Barry. We've all said it as
Mm-hmm.
far as Ben Affleck's Batman basically being the audience. Damn it, Barry, you did it again. Don't fuck with the universe, but you did, and here's what you've created. So there's that. Sasha Calle as Supergirl. Obviously, he's taking the place of Kal-El story in the comic book, because in the comic it was Kal-El who crashed on Earth and was in prison. She's taken that place now. And yeah, so all those elements of the Flashpoint stories there, and I'm excited for it. I mean, it really, the Zod piece, they basically like, here's what happens when you change the timeline, and it looks like they're just sort of picking up from the spot, I guess, before the Man is Still, and all the elements of the DCEU. So in a way, it really is like closing that. I can see how this film is going to close that chapter in the DCEU, and it looks like, I know some people are grumbling, and the Restore the Snyderverse folks are just like the geekdom version of MAGA, but or QAnon. But chill, folks. I think you're going to get a good closure for this chapter in the DCEU. They're going to do right by those characters. You'll still get some of those characters in Elseworlds. As far as Aquaman, I mean, we still have the Aquaman film later, so I don't, so we're going to have a multiverse moving forward. But I think this story will just sort of reset things, and all those elements that we saw in the trailer. I mean, I love the ring. I mean, it was just so many little elements in there that, despite Ezra's issues, and I will freely admit, you can't help but think about that as someone who has followed these things very closely. But when I think about this, the general audience and most people who don't follow this, follow all his things, unless they're really like, watch a lot of TMZ or something like that. I mean, vast majority of the audience, probably I won't say vast majority, a significant portion of the audience would have known about any of those issues. And it showed in the marketing. I mean, the way they dropped the trailer before the kickoff of the game online, and then, because I did watch the game, and then during the game they dropped another like 40-second trailer. I guess it was in the second quarter or whatever, before Rihanna came on, to again say, hey, we got this new movie, and go see the full trailer online. It was like a 40-second spot, but it had a lot of the key elements in it. So and it was borne out by like the stats I was reading today, where it was the most watched trailer of the Super Bowl in like since like 2018. So So, the excitement was there, and they're doubling down. And of course, they had the line, "Yes, yeah, they did the thing." Yes, I'm Batman.
Wait,
Yeah,
what? Huh?
the thing. Yes, I'm
What
Batman.
thing?
Oh, Michael Keaton saying the line. Yes,
Oh,
I'm Batman. Yeah.
I didn't
So,
know that was a thing.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Is it?
yeah. I mean,
I
that's
thought it
like,
was all about fuck Batman.
yeah. There's that too.
I mean, yeah, they did the thing
Yeah. So I mean, so I was very excited about the
because
trailer.
it
I guess
wasn't
as
true
you
by
can
what
tell.
he was wearing.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, you were clearly very excited. I'm very happy that it met all of your fanboy needs.
Yep.
That I hope that it lives up to. But I'm also always wanting to be secretly right about these things. So I kind of am also rooting against the movie. Let's
Yeah.
just be honest. You guys can tell, listeners can tell I'm in a mood today. So on that
No,
note, we will
tell that
leave
at all.
we will leave it on a happy note with Will's excitement to go and talk about a trailer that based briefly on something I get the suspicion you were not as happy about. But the Guardians of Galaxy Volume 3 trailer dropped. Um,
Yeah. It was good. It was okay. It was like a Rihanna show. It was mid.
Can't even say anything. Oh, okay. Is it my turn?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay. It's okay. No, I just wasn't expecting that. I was like, okay. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 trailer. It's funny. I feel like it's been 4 months since we saw the last trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point where I even forgot about that one. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm watching this one. I'm like, okay, I have definitely seen other things. And now I'm just putting the puzzle together in my brain. I'm like, I'm seeing way too much of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was a better trailer, though.
Yeah, it was.
Tell what is going to happen, and where things are, and why Gamora is around, even though they don't really they skip over the details.
Yeah.
I really, the thing I took away the most was the chemistry between Peter and Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying like love chemistry, that's the joke at the end, but I'm just talking about just their dynamic as more of siblings.
Yeah.
And I just like how after all of these movies, Nebula it's clear she is a part of this team. And I don't know. Anytime I see Guardians promotions, all I think about are the bastards at Comic-Con who came out of it and said the Guardians of Galaxy Volume 3 trailer made me cry.
Mm-hmm.
I want that trailer.
Yeah. We have yet to receive that trailer unless it was a scene. Was that Quill that they were carrying in that one scene?
But I don't see, for whatever reason, I wasn't thinking at that time that it would have anything to do with Peter, because Peter's the hero. He always lives. I was thinking maybe Rocket.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how they put. Yeah.
Like, I was really thinking about Rocket, there being something with him, because this is going to go into his past, and how he was created. So it's just, and don't give me the trailer now, because as I said before, we've seen way too much of this movie at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, we're good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Can only have like 10 jokes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm good. I'm good until May. So
yeah,
I totally agree.
I have never been the biggest fan of the Guardians. They've always been mid for me. So seeing this trailer and it's being mid, I'm like, that's status quo for me.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it looked awful. It just looks like a continuation of a story that I've never really gone out of my way to watch. But But I'm happy. It's good to we're gonna see the closing of a story, I think, right? This is gonna be the last one.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
it
so much
is.
silence now.
It is the last one. And you know, I've always I enjoyed the first Guardians. Second one, it was not so much. I mean, it was good. You know, there were, like you said, there were some definite beats in this trailer. The whole Peter Nebula thing at the end. I mean, I will freely admit, I did laugh the first time I watched it. The joke did work, and I've always, really enjoyed Rocket as a character, and his interactions with Groot and Drax. So but yeah, it just, I don't know. It was just like you said. It was this trailer was definitely better than the one prior, but it's still just, as far as like comic book films for this year. Um, given that we got Across the Spider-Verse coming, we've got the Flash. We got Ant-Man this week, and others. I don't know. It just didn't. It doesn't seem to be popping out of the crowd for me. Of the
Yeah.
that we have coming up.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think with the number of movies we have coming up, we kind of stick to, okay, what's really close and push everything off to get there. But I have a feeling it'll land somewhere like Thor Love and Thunder landed. So that's just my assumption. But you don't know. It is still James Gunn, and he delivered Peacemaker, and he actually made us like the Suicide Squad. So
He did.
He's a magician.
He really is.
All right. So I'm looking at the rundown, and I'm scrolling to the next topic, which is obviously The Last of Us. And for a split minute, I read This Is Us. What are we talking about?
Well, it did have some emotional. It definitely had some heartstrings and pulls. So I think you can be forgiven to thinking it was the This Is Us of The Last of Us.
No, This Is Us emotional heartstrings and pulls. I on Sunday afternoon, instead of watching the Super Bowl, I watched all of the first part of You on Netflix.
Okay.
And by watched, I mean I had in the background while I was doing other things.
Yeah. This is Sarah, for the new listener. Sarah's version of watched is basically what you just said.
Well, wait a second. Slow your roll.
All right.
Because later I actually watched to the point where I was like, I have no idea why I'm so emotional right now, but this is really sad. But on Apple TV, they have this show, Dear Edward, which is based on a book. My mom's, of course, read, loves it. But it is about a kid who is the only survivor of a plane crash. And there's a lot of grief, obviously, but his family was on the plane and all died except for him. And then you have you have a few other people who are connected to the passengers. And people end up writing to this kid because he's the only survival. He's Miracle Boy. And we haven't gotten into why they're writing to him. We've been mainly doing a lot of backstory stuff. There's only 4 episodes. I think the 5th one drops on Friday. But I was shocked by how much I watched of it. And B, shocked by, for whatever reason, they hired a really good kid actor. And like, this is perfect lead in to The Last of Us. Like, when you hire good kid actors, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it does.
All the difference. I mean, we're already 5 episodes in the series. Bella Ramsey's kicking ass. And now we have Sam. And Sam is just delightful to the end. So Fun fact, Will.
Okay.
When we were hearing about episode 3, I kid you not, I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, is that the Sam and Henry episode?
No.
Because I knew, for some reason in my mind, I was just like, man, when we get to Sam Henry, but I literally forgot exactly what happened. I remembered a few images, especially him on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I couldn't remember exactly if he or Henry, if Sam or Henry got infected, but I knew one of them did. And I also blanked on how the other one ended up dying until the moment, but we'll get there. Anyways, long story short, I love this episode. So far, I think this episode is my favorite of the season. However, I do have some issues with it. But yeah, Will, because I know that you've been reeling forever on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. You go.
Yeah. This I was gutted. I mean, I will freely admit. I mean, even now thinking about the episode and just how it ended and how Sam and Henry's story unfolded and all. You make a point about child actors and stuff, and of course I will go ahead and use this moment to talk about the discussions from the official Last of Us podcast with the showrunner and Neil Druckmann and Troy Baker, and they talked about how they came about Kavion Woodard and his casting of in the show, and how hard they're like how hard it was to do it because they did change up Sam's background a little bit from the game, and that in one they made him younger in the TV show, and also they made him deaf.
Right.
And so it was, but to find him the the kid who not only is deaf but speaks Black American Sign Language, which is and then also can act, and then seeing the interactions between him and Bella Ramsey as far as Sam and Ellie in the span of in that span of the show of when we first meet them, where you're hiding out in the 10 days before Joel and Ellie make it into Kansas City, and then we get to where we are outside the city, and he gets infected. That kid, I hope he gets cast in a lot more things because he sold it, and that emotional connection, and then also Henry, the actor who played him, Lamar Jackson, I believe his name.
Yeah.
They this show is going to get a lot of nominations for a lot of things, and I'm really hoping that these two will get some love in the supporting category, because you're right. So to date, this has been my favorite episode of this series.
Yeah.
And I think Friday night when we were talking about it, I even said, a lot of people were like, episode 3, very emotional, et cetera, but this one really hit me more to the core and episode 3 got me too, as anybody who listened to us knows, but this one really, really did. I mean, I literally jumped out of the seat. I was like standing in front of my TV Friday night watching that, like scene when Harry, after that whole sequence going down, and I was a crying mess standing there watching it in my living room because it was just so powerful and so powerfully done. Yeah.
It's arguably one of the, if not the most perfectly timed scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was watching it, I like I said before, it's as though I had amnesia, and I'm like, I know bits, and oh no, he's on the bed. He's gonna change, and then he attacks her, and then the gun comes out, and at first they both reach for it, and then Henry has a gun, and then there's a pause, of like, and not a literal pause, but then as a viewer, you're just like, oh shit, okay, you're not gonna, this is, Joel and Ellie aren't dying, so what?
Yeah, yeah.
And but there's a delay with him shooting Sam. And then there's a more delay with the next death, which I think the delays were perfectly timed so that as a viewer, you are experiencing exactly what he is in that moment of where this is Sam. Sam is changing, literally going to tear Ellie apart in front of us. It's not Sam anymore. And it's a split-second decision. It's not something you can ponder. No. And also what goes through your mind is, even if I don't kill him, like what kind of life is that for Sam? Right. So and then I'm not going to say this because I like it. I'm going to say because the choice while he is like realizing what he just did and what that means, and the switch between him and the blood. Oh, and then, and you know, as a viewer, because another thing of why this is so perfectly executed is because every interaction, whether it be between Henry and Joel or Sam and Ellie, leads you to understand, to quickly understand the motivation for why at the end of the day he takes his own life. Like, and it's just, I cannot get over how well they pulled that off. And that's why it stood out to me so much, because I know what's going to, I'm like, I know at the end of the day, there's two graves. Right. But I don't really recall. And even if knowing that how they got there, I was so engaged in it and just like reeling and I didn't cry, but I did start to well up because I'm like, oh no, he has to, like, you just killed the one thing you have done everything to protect. And in a way, yes, you killed him, but when you're infected, you're pretty much already dead. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and that's the cruel thing about it too, because having to make that split-second decision there in a moment, because if he didn't, he knew that Sam was going to kill Ellie, and and you know, one of the other things that I know they discussed on the podcast was whether or not when you're being infected, are you still there or not? And I really, you know, I'm really pondering that, because I think back to the first episode with Grandma when she was infected, you know, and she was in that catatonic state.
Right.
But then she was able to, you know, as the virus, as the fungus was, the cordyceps was, you know, working its way and getting control of the body, you know, she was able to get her mobility again. But the thing is, what makes that scene so even much more powerful is, even though I guess Sam was still in some form or fashion in that first phases of infection still himself, because whenever, you know, he asked Ellie that night before when they were just bonding over the comics and stuff, and they were in this, finally made it out of Kansas City in the safety of the hotel. Stay awake. You know, stay awake for me. And then she, of course, you know, she falls asleep in the chair and then wakes up in the morning, but he's sitting at the side of the bed. And then whenever she moves, he you know, he didn't hear her.
Yeah, which I took issue with because of their explanation about the lady you just mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm like, Well, why
Yeah.
didn't it cure that?
Right.
I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
make a big point of how this infection actually will heal whatever is wrong and preserve the host body, but you didn't. But I understand what they were going for,
Hmm.
because I was so stuck on that when I first watched it, I didn't even consider, oh, they're trying to say he's still fighting whatever is he's been infected by. But also, to that point, I think it's to go back a little bit to Henry's decision. It's kind of there's poetic irony happening in this situation where he sacrificed the
Hmm.
life. He became not a direct murderer,
Right.
but
An accessory.
murderer by affiliation.
Yeah, he was an accessory to a
He was
murder.
an accessory to murder.
Yeah.
And he sold out the leader of the resistance in Kansas City to get medicine
Yeah.
to cure his brother of leukemia.
Yeah.
There is no medicine for the infected.
Right.
So that,
And
I think that's a more interesting thing that I wish they would have talked about more on how that just twists the knife a little bit harder for Sam.
yeah. I mean, and that's what's so powerful about that scene, because, and I'm glad they didn't do that, and you came to that conclusion yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I think that's why this episode is so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
because there's all these moral conundrums and moral ambiguities that all these characters are going through, and you just can't picture, you just can't pigeonhole anyone as a good guy, bad guy. And even within the episode, I mean, even Henry was just like that, whenever he was talking about selling out, he was like, I guess I'm a bad guy because I'm a collaborator. I gave him up, but I did it for, in what his view, a noble reason, which was to save his brother.
Right.
And any number of us, forced with that decision, probably most of us would probably do the same thing.
Bill would have done that for Frank.
Yeah. If Frank,
Joel,
exactly.
Joel, we don't know if he would have done it for Ellie. He would have done it for Tess, but so it's the moral ambiguity, and I thought you were gonna go for the line of, I'm the most wanted man in Kansas City. Lamar must have had so much fun saying that line, because he went full cowboy on it.
He sure did. I was just thinking that.
Something out of a Western. I loved it. But
but I will say, even that being said, I will just will before I forget it, I did root a little bit whenever the child clicker got Kathleen.
Oh yeah, we all did.
Even though they didn't want us to, but I had to.
Yeah, that didn't work. I don't think I don't. Yeah, there was a lot of good in terms of the four characters of Joel, Ellie, Sam, Henry. You got plenty of shades of gray. Even the old man sniper, a shade of gray.
Yeah.
Kathleen, you tried, but I think that's where they did a few missteps. There was no redemption with her from a viewer perspective, because we didn't spend an entire, I hope people, okay. We didn't spend majority of this episode watching her relationship with her brother and then seeing that taken away from her. We were told one story.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
We were also shown mainly her reaction to the grieving process.
Yeah. She was Captain Ahab.
Yeah, and the revenge mode. So it's just, and the moment And I mean it's a great line for a villain to say, like, did you think kids are supposed to die?
Yeah.
But I do appreciate how what they were trying to do from the standpoint of why are you saying that your loved one is more important than mine?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's why, despite how fucked up the world is because of the infected, these are humans because love is life is love. So
Yeah.
it's a very strong emotion that can clearly cloud your judgment. But I want to go back for a moment.
Yeah.
Because I think it's interesting how in both this episode and episode 3 we really focused a lot on the endings, because arguably that's when the power happened, like the powerful moments and the big, like, we haven't even talked about the horde, but to
Yeah,
me
the horde
that's just an action scene. And then but the real climax of the episode was when Henry and Sam died. And what another thing that I really liked about it was how much impact that has on Joel and Ellie in different ways. And to go back to what we were saying before about the illness, and there being no cure, Ellie even tries to cure him.
Yeah.
She's not a science. They didn't teach her science in school.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know.
the faith, but it's like this crusade feel, and it even ties back to the beginning with, like, even though it was a violent uprising to crush Fedra in Kansas City, which rumors had gotten, and again, I love how this show ties the world together, because even in the Boston QZ and other places, they talked about KC, or maybe it was in episode 3 with Bill and Frank, but we heard about the Kansas City QZ being just dystopia. More, we're already in a dystopia. This is like dystopia plus, and but then there's the rebellion, and there's the uprising, and there's this groundswell of just faith that things will be better now because we're free of Fedra. And then Ellie, in her action of having faith in her blood by just cutting and putting it on there, and then that faith being crushed. It's just like, but she's also resilient, because she's the one who, like, leads Joel away from this moment.
Oh, well, she wants to get out of there as much as possible.
Yeah.
She's like, I gotta go. I can't do this. I broke my promise. I'm not. They told me that my blood was the cure. It didn't work, and I couldn't save him. I need to get out of here, because she like Joel wants to be the martyr and wants to be the savior, and she couldn't, and she didn't bite him. She didn't throw him to the infected, but she feels like she's to blame, and that's why I love that moment of her placing that the pad on his grave and saying, "I'm sorry." And she also, another very important line, and is she's afraid of one thing, and that's to be alone.
Yeah.
Very important line. But and then Joel is so quiet at the end but Pedro's doing such a good job of just all the emotions and the thought processing. And this is when two actors have, like, great natural chemistry. Is those moments, I think one or two things are muttered, and it's mainly by Ellie, of like, where do we go? Which way's west? Let's go. Come on. And he's not responding to her, but he is, through the emotions that are going on in his face, of like, I'm not her dad, but we just experienced the loss. And I like how the writers pointed out, he's burying these people because, not for him, but because Ellie, Like Ellie needs that peace. Like, yeah, she wants to get out of there, but this is the right thing to do first. So
and she also and another thing, another detail I missed the first time I watched. Second time I noticed she was also helping to bury them.
Yep. Yeah, because I mean, they are not related, but there's sometimes their habits, especially how they deal with grief, like looking in a mirror. And maybe that's what scares Joel the most is he's like, I don't want you to become me.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the horde scene. Okay, you know me, Will. You know me. I have an issue with action sequences when I don't have a good spatial understanding. So to me, while cool, I still didn't really understand how he could see exactly what she was doing and where she was going and like predict all of this stuff so he could protect her from where he was in the house.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a very weird spatial thing where I'm like, okay.
I mean, that from that vantage point, I was, given that it was dark. I mean, I guess this goes back to, Joel being a vet and I guess being a very good marksman.
I know Tommy is, but he didn't say that he went into the war.
No, he didn't. For some reason, I thought. I guess it was Tommy's truck that had the sticker on the back. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So you're right. I that was that part of the hordes didn't take me out too much. The thing, they didn't seem as scary to me this time.
Thank you. Yep. As soon as the
bloater
bloater walked up, I was like,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if this is because. Yeah.
You're going to laugh so hard. The bloater did not take me out because it just looked like Groot ate another Groot. Literally looked like somebody just like went into a Groot outfit and I don't know, but man.
Yeah, the clickers were, when they were in a museum, were so much more scarier. And I don't know if it's because it was just so many. I don't know if it's because I've seen it, like and I appreciate what they were trying to achieve, especially using actual people instead of CG. But but it's just, so I got the sense of they're being overrun.
Right.
But it didn't, the bloater, given that, this is like the end, if you're strong enough to make it through all the phases of this the cordyceps fungus, this is where you end up. It and maybe it didn't scare me. I didn't feel I didn't feel the threat that it was.
The only time when I did get creeped out was with Ellie and the girl clicker in the car.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's because in both of in that scene and the scene that you're referencing in episode 2, like it's you know where everyone is. There's tension. There's not chaos. There's tension, and there's a big difference with that. I'm also keep thinking about a classic Game of Thrones episode. I think the Battle of the Bastards. And how much, like, I've never seen a battlefield scene with like 1,000 people or so coming together, and there's just this epic battle, but there's spatial awareness with the cameras. There's clear shots, and there's how do I put this? Well-directed chaos. I don't think the chaos in this was directed as well as it could have been to make you feel more that tension. And also the way it occurred, I think, played into that, because it's clearly a device to get our main characters out out from their interaction with Kathleen.
Yeah.
So they kind of forced this showdown between Kathleen and Henry, and then they needed a way out. And so you have the bloaters come, or the infected come up, and you're just like, okay.
Yeah. That, if there was any, like, I guess, demerit to the episode, that was this was the one place where I felt that it was that was where the demerit was, and because I think it's just, honestly, the way they have adapted this game from from the game in live action, the character beats in those moments are really what's driving me as a person, as a viewer, to really just get wrapped in this. I mean, like I said, from the moment we get the 10 days backstory of how Sam and Henry, when the night of the uprising, and we're seeing Henry protect them, and like from all the chaos, and that chaos was actually more like impactful to me.
It was more scary.
And more scary, yeah.
Yeah, it's just I think it's fascinating how when you're watching this episode, because of last week's episode, you suddenly feel as though last week you were given a half-colored drawing, and now the drawing is complete, and you're like, I understand what happened here. I understand what's going on. And I love how they do that. I love how, looking back at the structure of these episodes, the uses of flashback have been very paramount, but used in very different ways. We didn't necessarily start with a flashback, but we did go back to 10 days before. I didn't even realize it was that recent. For me, I might have missed something in last week's episode, but I was like, oh, damn, this shit went down quickly.
So, I don't think you missed it at all. I mean, I think it was, I mean, that was what was so stark about it, because it's like, because the way it was presented last week, it seemed like this had been going on for months.
Exactly. And you got just enough. And I think it's funny how a lot of people who are not familiar with the game, nobody mentioned last week of, why does Kansas City have no infected? Like, what's going on here? and we got more information about that. The eeriness. I think there was so much silence that there was this weird eeriness going on, especially when they were in the tunnels, which I love that scene. I really appreciate how much Sam and Henry impacted Joel and Ellie, and we will see how play out over the rest of the season, if not season 2. Because I think I am so looking forward to the day when we can go back and be like, okay, so do you recall this line? Because it leads here and does this, which it's a good and bad thing to know about this story. It's a curse and it's a luxury. But yeah, I was that final scene, like, I've never. And I do want to make one more point about that final scene, or that final scene with Henry and Sam. Did you notice that they did not show, they edited it out, the actual him shooting himself? Yeah.
I noticed that.
Do they do that in television? Like, I'm trying to think about it, and I'm like, I feel as though anytime someone commits suicide, it's always done off camera.
Yeah.
Like the physical act of it.
Physical act of it. The only time I remember seeing it, I mean, I've seen it like in movies, like in Full Metal Jacket, where private in basic training like kills himself.
Spoiler.
But yeah, where he shoots himself. Yeah.
Spoiler.
And it's
No,
it's very disturbing. But as far as like, I can't think of a recent television show where it's happened.
yeah. I just I don't know. It's we saw Sam get shot, the kid. and
Yeah,
I'm not saying it like I want to see it.
No, I get you. I get you. Yeah.
Interesting choice.
Yeah. No, I think it's no. I mean, it's brutal. I mean, just hearing. I was like, even just like I was listening to the audio of it from the podcast. With
Yeah.
the official podcast, and hearing that scene. I mean, it's just. I mean, I'm getting a lump in my throat just trying to talk about it because it's just so visceral, so chilling, and especially like again how like like you're saying. I mean, Sam and Ellie. I think about them, playing soccer there in that little in it was Ish's lair where the people who did escape and created their own community for a while and all of those things. I mean, like I said, I mean, that's why at that when things happen and of course I'm like, oh God, when he's infected, I saw where it was going but I hadn't seen the cutscene, so I wasn't like one of the people who played the game and knew what was coming. But even so, it just, yeah, damn, I can't talk about it. It's just too much.
Yeah. I will say, thinking about it more, probably why they chose to do that is because as a viewer, it's more impactful for us to observe first through Henry's perspective, the action of killing Sam, and then because the next action is killing himself, seeing Joel and Ellie's reaction to that rather than seeing it. So yeah, that's probably why they edited it that way. But
yeah, and you're right. I mean, I think Joel, their reaction after seeing what had just being in the room what had just transpired, whenever they were burying them and just where Joel, just the emotions that were going through Joel at that moment, Ellie trying to just move on with her feeling as a failure of protecting Sam. And just how this is going to springboard their relationship and how they react to things moving forward. Because this is like really the first, because whenever we encountered Bill and Frank, they were already dead when they got to their place in the town. So that, and I know, and I like the way they changed it from the game as far as how they came into meeting Henry and Sam. I mean, it works well for live action compared to how they were introduced in the game.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Any other?
And it makes the story more powerful. Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, it just really just makes, that's what I think why this episode has such an impact. And and it's it's definitely going to be one of those ones that that will stick. It sticks with me more so than episode 3, which I mean, people were like, this is the best show ever, episode ever. But this one to me was, for different reasons, was
All right. On that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me ILLMPOLK
And you can follow me on Twitter at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.